Hi, I'm Dr. Aliabadi. If you struggle with irregular cycles, acne, facial hair, body hair, hair loss, or insulin resistance, you might be dealing with PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. Having dedicated my life to helping women with PCOS, I understand the challenges in getting an accurate diagnosis and the right care. That's why I created Ovi, a science-backed alternative to prescription medications. Ovi is designed to help you take control of your health with clinically proven, validated ingredients in a simple, once-a-day solution. For too long, women with PCOS have had to choose between lifelong prescriptions or complicated supplement regimens. Ovi offers a better way to help manage your symptoms without the hassle. It's my mission to empower women facing PCOS and other hormonal issues by providing the information and support they need. Reclaim your health once and for all. Go to ovi.com. That's ovii.com and start today.
So we are so lucky today to have Victoria Garrick Browne. But I love your story, and you have a great podcast. It's The Real Pod,
yes.
and it started with a TED Talk, and you had been a D1 athlete, and you really suffered with eating disorders, body dysmorphia, all that. And it's just, what I want to hear about it. How did you sort of get the strength to, so many athletes, you're almost like ballet dancers too. Like your body is your vessel, but yet you're forced to be a certain way and look a certain way. So I'd love for our listeners just to hear how it began and then, what you're doing now to change the world.
Definitely. Well, thank you. That's generous. But I think our relationships with our body are very complex. No matter how old you are, what gender you are. I certainly grew up versed in diet culture. I think I was drinking Slim Quick shakes when I was like 14 years old, just because you saw that. You just want to be skinny. You see it everywhere in media. And I just remember feeling like pressure to be thin. And I think even at a young age, just, receiving comments about, oh, you're so lean. And then me being like, well, what does lean mean? Oh, it means skinny. Well, I was just at a sleepaway camp and I didn't have all my normal snacks. So I lost weight, So you just kind of pick up these cues. You hear the things that the women in your life say. And I went into college definitely as someone who had tried a lot of diets. I'd worked with a nutritionist. I'd counted my calories. I weighed myself. I was very aware. But then in college, when I was a Division I athlete, I played volleyball at USC right here in LA, is when things got more severe because my routine physically was just completely different than it was when I was in high school. I was now Olympic lifting. I was exercising almost 4 to 5 hours a day. We were I was 18 years old playing against like 23-year-old women who had been in college for years before me and had a lot of muscle. And you're just receiving a lot of information about how you're supposed to look. Drink the muscle shakes, gain muscle, but then I'd go hang out with my friends in the sororities and I was the biggest girl there and I wanted to be small and petite. So it was kind of the juxtaposition of like being this female athlete and then being this traditional looking type of image. And then that led me to sort of spiral in a way because I felt like I want to be this thin feather, but then I also want to be able to play and dig a ball coming at me that's 70 miles an hour on the volleyball court. So that's what led me to start to develop what was a binge eating disorder, where I started by restricting, okay, I'm not going to fuel myself properly because if I don't eat as much, then I can get this thin body that I want. But oh wait, I'm like starving because we just played against UCLA and now I'm in my dorm late at night. My stomach's grumbling. I've told myself I can't have it, I can't have it, I can't have it. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed as a freshman out of my environment, away from my family. And I turned to food as a coping mechanism. And so I would just like eat at night. And it was a release. It brought me like just almost like a quick hit of like letting go, comfort, 100% comfort. It was emotional eating, definitely. And then, oftentimes I would cry afterwards and be like, I can't believe I did that. Like that's, but I want to have this body and I'm so mad at myself. So tomorrow we're going to go even harder. We're going to dive further into this diet. And then it led to that cycle. And it was really unhealthy. It consumed my every thought. And it wasn't until my sophomore year where I really started to work on healing my relationship with food and body image. But I'll pause it there to let you guys tell me where I should take it.
No, I mean, so how did you do that? What are the things that you did to heal yourself?
Yeah. The first thing that really opened my eyes was the fact that I did have a problem. I am sort of a perfectionist type person. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. You're very high achieving women. And I think when I was talking to a nutritionist about like that next diet I wanted to go on, and I started to open up about my patterns and my habits, and she had been someone I'd worked with throughout the year and we were comfortable with each other. And she was the one that was kind of like, okay, and how often does this happen? And, more and more to basically tell me like, I think this is consistent with a binge eating disorder and I'm actually kind of concerned. And when I heard a professional tell me something like that, I kind of freaked out. I remember where I was on campus, like when the light turned for the walk sign, and I was like, oh my gosh, she just gave me this like term and this label, and I was scared. And I opened up to my mom. We're very close. So I felt like I needed to tell her. And then my mom, actually, you guys will appreciate the story as mothers, but so my mom came to campus that next week or something for a game, and we were having lunch together. And I was like, Mom, I need to tell you something, and I don't want you to get mad at me. I don't want you to judge me or like look at me different, but I just need you to like hear what I'm saying and just sit with it for 1 second. She's like, are you pregnant? And I was like,
that's the first thing that goes through our mind.
And I said, no, I'm not pregnant. But that is a nice icebreaker for what I'm about to tell you, which is they think I have an eating disorder. And so, my mom was obviously concerned, and she was like, okay, and just taking it, and she's a great listener. And I think like that next week, I got a package from her, and it was a book, and the book was called Breaking Free from Emotional Eating. And I was like, this is jarring. Like, I'm like, Mom, why did you send me this book? She's like, honestly, I read it years ago and I found it on my nightstand. I was like, Mom, there's plastic on the book. It's brand new. Yeah. She's like, well, I found it on Amazon. It's a bestseller. I was really worried. The book's by Janine Roth. And I duct taped the cover because I didn't want anyone to see I was reading it. It was like, to call myself an emotional eater at the time felt embarrassing. I carried a lot of shame around it, especially because I think like anorexia is maybe more of the glorified eating disorder where you're not eating as much. So for me to be like, I eat it all, like that, I was embarrassed about it. So I duct taped the cover, but I read the book, and I started to just really, my wheels were turning, my eyes were opening. I remember that there was a sentence that said, it doesn't matter how many calories are in an egg white. Do you want an egg white? And I was like, I don't know. I've literally never asked myself. I just eat what the magazine or the YouTuber says. So that was my first introduction to a concept and a practice called intuitive eating, which is a mindfulness framework and approach to food, which is ultimately what healed my relationship with food.
The same thing. I learned intuitive eating too. So it's funny how it's coming up more and more and more with some of our guests. We have something that was really important to me in my life too. You know what's so crazy when I think about you being a D1 athlete in volleyball, and as a mom, I had boys, but I had a lot of friends with girls, especially in high school, who were these incredible little athletes. And they had this struggle between, young girls that really want to be athletes, but they also, it's like the skinny and the strong. And how are you skinny and strong? And sometimes you really can't be. Like these volleyball players, like you just said, you just described it, it's coming to you 70 miles an hour. And you can't be a little skinny twig to be able, and a lot of the girls ended up quitting sports, and they could have gone D1 because of that. Like, oh, I can't be the biggest girl in the room. So,
which is like so sad to think about women who've surpassed opportunities or pursuing their full potential because you feel you're going to be valued less in society because your image is put at the forefront of your worth as a human, and that just doesn't happen for men at all. And I think even as I hear you describe it, like what I had to go through mentally was like, who said strong wasn't beautiful? Who said being bigger wasn't beautiful? And I think that's been great thing that started to happen in 2018, 19, 2020 was seeing a lot of the body positivity that was online and people realizing you can be strong and beautiful. I love Alona Mar, who was just on Dancing with the Stars. And like, I've actually, like, I felt like I teared up watching some of her dances because I was like, the younger athlete in me just is touched by seeing like a beautiful, strong, muscular woman be in a ballroom dress and glitter and be twirled around regardless of if you had the stereotypical body type that we've been told since we were little girls that we had to look like.
Well, I also think, especially in the volleyball world, there's a new company called Quartz. I don't know if you've heard of it, but the founder of this started the company because, again, her daughters were volleyball players, and they haven't changed. These little teeny tiny little shorts that you guys have to wear as volleyball players, which, can you imagine? I mean, yes, you can imagine. I can't imagine. No. I see them and they're barely covering your bottom. You can basically see your vagina. I mean, I'm literally like, and so she's trying to reimagine what that looks like, because you're supposed to jump up in the air and wear these crazy little tiny shorts that haven't changed in I don't know how many years.
I mean, picture you're having your worst body image day. Literally picture you wake up and you were like, I don't feel good in my body today. And then you have to play a game that night in those tiny little spandex on national television with everyone in the arena like looking at you. And you have to then perform the physical task. I think when you think about the physical experience, like I was a libero, so I was diving, I was rolling, I was on the floor, and like spandex were actually helpful to the movement. But it is an added element of like the jersey is skin tight, the shorts are super short, and your body is just inherently on display. I think gymnasts feel the same way. So yeah, I mean, fortunately, I have seen girls now wear the yoga pants you can wear like to the floor, which is more common. People wear yoga pants all the time.
So we talk a lot on the podcast because it's her life's work about PCOS, and a lot of girls with PCOS have eating disorders, and it starts when they get their period because all of a sudden they're insulin resistant and I'm wondering, have you ever been diagnosed with PCOS?
So I've been an athlete pretty much for as long as I can remember, definitely through grade school, middle school, was a competitive athlete. My PCOS journey, which doctor, I'd love your input on this as I explain, but when I was 14, I remember my period, I think it came once and I got it and then it like never came again. And my mom was like, so you haven't had your period? And I was like, no, it just doesn't come. So she took me in. It was one appointment. The OBGYN was like, you have PCOS. So I got on birth control my freshman year of high school, no desire to be sexually active. Felt honestly embarrassed I was taking birth control, but that regulated the period. And I never asked another question for 10 years. And then I started to see kind of the new school holistic approach to medicine and balancing your hormones and all of that on the internet in like 2021. And it made me want to, go to a doctor and kind of get reevaluated to see if I had PCOS.
How long did you take birth control?
I think 10 years.
10 years. And when did you stop it?
I stopped it, I think it was 2021 or 2022.
And how are you doing since with your
period?
period?
So since I stopped it, my period has actually been coming regularly, which I thought was great. I was like, oh my gosh. But it's not like to the date. I'll have it be off by a whole week.
Yeah.
And that is scary because now I'm married and I could be pregnant. I'm like, not yet. But so then I finally now my third OBGYN is saying, well, let's track it because if your period is not irregular, that's like the number one thing that would mean PCOS. So it's possible maybe you don't have it. So
it's hard, in a 14-year-old who hasn't had her period to just label them with PCOS, because when we first start getting our period up to about age 18, 19, it's okay to have irregular periods. Now, it's not okay to not have a period at all. But you have to look at other symptoms. You can't just look at irregular period. There are PCOS patients who have regular cycles and they have all these other symptoms. So, as I'm listening to you, obviously it's hard to diagnose, but have you ever had a pelvic ultrasound? Did anyone tell you have PCOS looking ovaries on ultrasound?
Yes, I've had that. I've seen all the
follicles.
Yes, all the follicles.
There you go.
String of pearls is what we call them.
So, every time, and Mary Alice knows this, every time I see a young girl, especially someone who's so athletic, exercising, someone who still struggles, you have to know in your gut that you're probably dealing with PCOS. The problem is majority of these patients, the literature says 75% of these patients are not diagnosed. I think that number is a lot higher in this country because majority of my patients who show up have never been diagnosed. You need 2 out of 3 criteria, generally speaking, to get it diagnosed. 1 is irregular cycle. 2 is PCOS looking ovaries on ultrasound, and 3 is elevated testosterone symptoms. You don't need to have a high testosterone in the blood to get the diagnosis, but there's symptoms, the most common being facial hair, body hair. And it could be acne, it could be hair thinning as we get older. These patients tend to be anxious.
Me being described.
Yeah. They usually gain weight as they get older. They struggle. They either have a history of eating disorder or they have disordered eating. They usually have family history of diabetes, overweight family members. And the list goes on. And it's one of the top causes of infertility because, all those little follicles are great, but then the quality of it goes down after 30. So it's like a combination of symptoms. You don't need to just chart your periods.
Right.
There's a category of PCOS patients who have regular cycles, but they have PCOS looking ovaries on ultrasound and they have elevated testosterone symptoms and all these other symptoms.
Yeah,
so
definitely on the ultrasound, the follicles is a check. And then as far as the 2 other boxes, with the testosterone, like I don't feel like I've ever struggled with having like abnormal facial hair. I've definitely felt like my arms are hairier, but I also could just be an insecure person who just is aware of it. But I also have maintained, honestly, since I began intuitively eating, like I found my set point weight and it doesn't really fluctuate as long as I'm listening to my body. That's the thing it's just so hard for women, right? Like, how do you know if you have this problem?
has anyone checked your egg count? For example, how old are you, if you don't mind?
27.
27. Let's say at 27, someone does an egg count and your AMH is 15, right?
What does that mean?
That's super high. That's PCOS. Patients are talking about it more and doctors are starting to talk about it. But for years, like if I can honestly tell you 10 years ago, no one was getting diagnosed really.
Well, and we created OVII.com, and it has a quiz on it for all the questions that she uses in her office.
It's like a calculator.
I need to take that.
It's like a calculator.
But you know what is hard about it is like I have been to multiple OBGYNs who all say different things. I've seen a doctor and he says to me, PCOS not a real thing. They just say that. No, I know. And then I go to another person and she's like, you have PCOS, but you need to have progesterone every single month to induce your period. I go to the next doctor. Actually, you might not have PCOS and you shouldn't be ingesting the progesterone. So I'm like, these are all qualified Beverly Hills doctors.
Honey, welcome to polycystic ovarian syndrome. Why do you think I want to hit my head on the wall?
I'm privileged to jump around to multiple doctors that are recommended by great people, and it's difficult for me with insane privilege. So it's like, think about the mom or the woman who has to just go through healthcare and take the C-level doctor. Like it's sad.
It's impossible.
It's
Well, you know what? You can go to Beverly Hills and see 50 doctors and you will still be dismissed. That's why when, the literature says 75% of these patients are undiagnosed, I'm like, that's not true. I've been seeing them for 20-some years. This number is over 90%.
That's crazy.
So you can't, these patients are not diagnosed. That's why they end up in the fertility clinics, right? Someone like you goes to the office, has an ultrasound, and the doctor says, oh my God, you have so many follicles. You don't have to worry about it. You're gonna have as many kids as you want. No, because the ovulation is not optimal. The quality of the egg goes down. At the base of this disease is insulin resistance. So when you're an athlete and you're exercising and you have mindful eating and you're watching what you're eating, you're literally treating it at the core of it. However, diet and exercise sometimes doesn't do it for these patients. And that's why they get so frustrated that they start having an eating disorder.
Well, to bring both the eating disorder and the PCOS conversation full circle, I also had an OBGYN who very first appointment was like, oh, and so you're gonna need to cut all gluten and dairy. And fortunately, I have the confidence and I feel empowered enough to say, hi, so yeah, I've had an eating disorder. I'm not gonna walk out of this office and cut 2 major food groups with zero preparation, not understand. Like, And if I didn't have that, I can picture a girl leaving and crying in her car and thinking
not being
she
able
can't
to
have
do that.
dairy
Yeah.
and gluten all week, and then creating an eating disorder. And so it's like, I was also blown away by that, of just like how quickly to tell someone to do a drastic change in their life without even asking the history of their relationship with food, which I know you probably don't do any of this, but
Yeah.
you're like the top OBGYN in the world.
No, it's not that. It's not true. It has nothing to do with that. I've done this even when I came out of County USC and I started my practice. I was careful with the PCOS and endometriosis patients. I've always been careful, especially the two of them being the top causes of infertility on the planet, right? The reason I started OV with Mary Alice was because of listening to stories like yours. The reason I started this platform is it's so frustrating. I sometimes cry with these patients in my office. I had a patient last week who has lost 100 pounds with me. This woman's life has completely changed. All we did is fix her hormones, treat her acne, freeze her eggs, like just basic stuff that, is her right. But women in general get dismissed. That's why, we created this quiz that you basically can go on ovii.com. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. Take the questionnaire. We cannot diagnose someone online, but we can tell you whether or not you have the likelihood of having a PCOS condition. And if you do, we have this amazing supplement. I swear, for people who know me, they know I don't advertise. I'm not good at that. But
She's
this
not.
supplement,
I have to do all the advertising on the podcast.
no, I just don't like talking about something, but this product is unbelievable.
What is it? I'm sold already.
So it has 16 ingredients geared towards all the symptoms of PCOS. PCOS patients have chronic inflammation. It has a lot of anti-inflammatories in it. It has a lot of antioxidants. It has a proprietary blend in it. It's Reducose that basically balances your blood sugar. It has the inositol blend in it that helps with insulin sensitivity. It's just an amazing, and anyone with insulin resistant can take it. I take it before every single meal, but before my heaviest meal every single day. But in reality, I'm trying to bring awareness to this condition. That's why we talk about it. That's why I'm so grateful when someone like you is willing to openly talk about this condition.
You could ask me more. I'm happy. I'll be patient A for people.
I love it. And so you take the quiz, and if you have the likelihood of having it, here's an amazing supplement. You don't need a prescription. You can take it, but you have to learn to be your own advocate.
What's the supplement and where do I get it?
It's called OV. OV.
Oh, OV is the supplement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you created a supplement on the website with the survey.
Yeah.
I'm
We didn't
there.
start this podcast or OV for any other reason than just to try to help women.
Oh, I completely believe it. Yeah.
Be their own advocate, and this has been her life's work. And I honestly
Look at her.
I know.
Look at her.
I know.
Look, how many doctors have you seen? And you know why? Because your doctor is not sure. So if the doctor is not confident to diagnose you, I operate on endometriosis patients every single week, and I'm never wrong in the diagnosis. But the reason I'm saying this, not because it's me, I'm saying if you take the time and listen to the patient, 90% of your diagnosis is right there. Then you can add an ultrasound to it. Then if you want to do a blood test. But if you come to my office, I have medical assistants who put the patients in and take a history before I walk in, and they usually write the plan. These medical assistants are unbelievable, and their accuracy of diagnosis is almost 100%. Sometimes once a week I come out, I'm like, no, I don't think this patient's like this. But almost always they walk in, they come up to me, they're like, you have a new endo patient, you have a new PCOS patient, this patient has this. Because it's the same thing. It's not rocket science. And that's why, I have daughters at Stanford. They're in biotech. I beg them. I'm like, I beg you, make an OBGYN robot, because robots will never dismiss women. A robot, if you walk into a robotic clinic and you tell the robot, my name is this, at 14 I didn't have my period, I was on birth control for 10 years, then I came off, now my period skipped 1 week here, 2 weeks there, and I've had, I was told I have PCOS, looking over, I've had anxiety, I've had an eating disorder, all of it, It'll diagnose you in 2 seconds.
Well, I feel grateful because I feel like I just did get my diagnosis from Dr. A.
Yeah,
which
I
is
mean,
clarity.
It's just, it just, I hear your story and we hear it
frustrating, though. It's so frustrating.
every day. And my heart breaks. My heart breaks for these little girls. And I talk about them a lot as a mom. And, you know, you're only as happy as your most unhappy child. And when you see your child struggle, like, you know, I can't even imagine what your mom and the bravery that you had to be able to sit there with her and say, Mom, I have this eating disorder and I need help. And the sweetness that she did that day, but I mean, I think about it like for my own children, but you know, we just don't have enough doctors like Dr. A. And it's, you know, so we have to do our best to have platforms like this, to have people like you that do that TED Talk and it changed your life. It changed, you know.
Can you do a PCOS TED Talk?
I don't, you should be the
I'll
one to do
train
it.
you do it.
That is something that I think is really incredible about social media. A lot of people will shit on social media, and I have done it too, and it can be really negative and detrimental for mental health, especially youth mental health. However, the fact that people can listen to like this show for free and they can hear everything that you just said and they can hear both of your insight for free is an incredible thing, because there were many years before podcasts, before social media, where no one would hear anything that you had to share about this unless they were in your office. So that is something that is awesome. And I always encourage people, like, the internet can be scary, and be smart with it and find, you know, the right accounts to listen to, because we don't want to just, you know, type into Google, am I dying of XYZ? And then we get freaked out for a month. But like, I think it is one of the awesome benefits of social media is the free resources and the accessible resources to get us on the right track.
It's really sad when it comes to women's health, though. Every time as a woman, when you open your mouth and you say, this hurts, it's either you're anxious, you're paranoid, it's in your head. No one listens.
The constant pain of just like sometimes in a woman's body, like the things that we have to go through.
I would never switch my place with a guy.
Me either.
I love being a woman too. As being an athlete, I'm a tough cookie. Like you could do a lot to my body, and I have a high pain tolerance. So it's hard for me to know, like, is the pain I'm experiencing just what everyone's always said about having your period? You have cramps and it hurts?
I can ask you a question and you can answer it.
Okay.
Does it affect your social life? When you get your period, would you, if you had the option, would you stay home and skip work? Would you cancel your plan? And does it affect your life? Because I've had periods all my life. I would take 2 Advils and it'll be done. I would never change my plans. But if you have painful sex with deep penetration, if you're getting bloated, if you have PCOS, the likelihood of you having endometriosis is 40%. Yeah. So it's something you can't dismiss. It's easy to say, I have high pain threshold, but you also don't want to miss it because it's so common, especially when you're dealing with PCOS.
Yeah, well, 2 things. One, for the people watching this at home, if I'm laughing, I use humor to cope because I'm getting a lot of diagnoses today, but I'm taking this very seriously. I would say that day 1 is hard for me. It is the hardest day. I feel it. I feel my back starts to hurt, and I know my period's coming. And that first day, without any sort of medication is tough for me, but then the other days are fine. But if I take my Midol Complete on time, I love the Midol Complete and it does work for me, then I'm okay. I am bloated, but I need to do that to then go on with my life.
Good.
But no, it's not days.
I mean, you need to have a pelvic ultrasound, check your egg count. You just don't want to miss it. The other thing I wanted to tell you is you had been on oral contraceptives, birth control pills for many years. For our listeners, I always say, if you stay on a combination birth control pill more than 7 years, I want you to check your egg count, because a small percentage of patients, when they start a birth control and they stay on it for 10 years, they can get chronic suppression of their ovaries. And that's the last thing you want to do. So if you want to stay on your birth control pill, you have to check your egg count every year just to make sure it's not declining. And if it declines, you can stop it. Someone like yourself who's, let's say you're not ready to have a baby, you've been on 10, 12 years of birth control pill, you don't want to do any exogenous systemic hormones, one thing I would recommend is a small progesterone IUD. If you have endometriosis, it'll suppress, the growth of your endo. It'll help with your heavy periods, painful period, cramps, painful sex, all of it. And of course, if all fails and you continue to have pelvic pain, then you need laparoscopy. There's so many levels of this. Even with laparoscopy, if you give, 100 laparoscopes to 100 gynecologists, half of them will miss endometriosis.
I definitely think from this conversation, I feel like the PCOS in my gut, like I think I have that. With the endo, maybe I'm in denial, but I don't feel like I have. I have friends who've had it in stories, and I don't feel like it's nearly that bad. So I don't think I have that. However, I do want to check my egg count and all of that stuff, just to be ahead of the game.
Hormones, check your egg
That's
count.
the other thing is then the doctors will say, well, are you trying to have kids soon? I'll be like, no. And they'll be like, well, you can wait. They tell you, like, it's so uncomfortable, right? And then you're demanding. You're like, I want you to do this test for me. It's just.
Yeah.
We had someone who worked for us. What did the doctor tell her?
She said, I wanted to check my eggs. And he was like, I'm not going to check your eggs.
She was 24 with really painful periods. She came up to me one day and she's like, I'm worried listening to your podcast here, being with you guys. I think I have endometriosis. I'm like, great, go do an ultrasound, go get your egg count, check your hormones, come back and report back to me. She came back and she's like, well, my doctor told me it's malpractice to do an egg count because I'm 24, 25 years old and it's malpractice. What? I have 18-year-olds freezing eggs with endometriosis.
Yeah.
I mean,
because if you don't catch it early and they've destroyed
There's a
all
lot
your
of
eggs.
misinformation too. I have seen people also saying that if you freeze the egg, it's actually not. When you unfreeze it, it's less healthy or.
So that's not true. So it's true and not true. So the younger you are, the better the quality of the eggs. So let's say at 25, every 3 eggs will probably give you 1 embryo. At 40, 10 to 12 eggs will give you 1 embryo. So the equation gets harder and harder. When you're young, let's say you have PCOS. Polycystic ovarian syndrome patients have tons of eggs, but the quality goes down at 30. But if you freeze their eggs at 25 and you get 40 eggs out, you have 40 25-year-old eggs. So come 35, you can't get pregnant, they can use those. Having said that, every time you freeze and unfreeze, you lose some of those eggs, but who cares? You still have 25-year-old eggs left. It's better than waiting on a PCOS patient until she's 38 years old and then going into a panic mode. And these are patients who come to my office. They're like, I don't like my fertility doctor. I put out 30 eggs and he couldn't make a single embryo. It's not your doctor's fault. The quality of those embryos are bad.
Right.
And at 39, you shouldn't put out 30 eggs. So that's PCOS. There's just so much misinformation about this. And I mean, we talk about this every opportunity I have on this podcast. I talk about PCOS. This has to be solved for women.
So you need to be checking your eggs. But let me just say something, which I think is right. But you're going to tell me if it's right because I am not a medical doctor.
Dr.
I just play
Haney.
one on TV.
By
It's
proxy,
better if you do have a partner to do embryos
freezing,
instead
yes.
of egg freezing. I think that might be what you've heard, that it's not that great to just freeze eggs, but that's not true.
So good.
That's not true.
Let's talk about that.
Interesting.
When you
so just like fertilize that shit and
fertilize.
freeze it.
Yeah.
So that's
Wow.
a very good point. Why? When you freeze eggs, we can only tell you how many eggs are frozen. So we get quantity but not quality. As soon as you mix it with sperm and make an embryo, then we can tell you the quality. Are these good embryos
That's
you're making?
so smart. You're one step ahead of the game.
You are, except that if you don't have a partner or if you're in a relationship and you're not really sure if you want to have a child with that person, you do not want to freeze embryos. The second you freeze embryos, the embryos don't belong to you, they belong to both of you. So you wouldn't be able to transfer those embryos if he doesn't give permission.
Yeah.
But the eggs are always yours. So if you're unsure of your partner or if you don't have a partner, I always say freeze, freeze, freeze. And that freezing age depends on your egg count. I have 18-year-old freezing eggs and I have 32-year-olds freezing eggs. Let me ask you, you said your mom had IVF?
Yeah.
Did she have painful periods or PCOS?
My mom,
Why did she have IVF?
she had IVF. She had there's 3 of us. My older brother was conceived, all good. Then she had miscarriage, maybe 2, at least 1 before me. And then doctor said, you need to do IVF for your second child. And then that's how I was created. And then she was told, you won't be able to have kids. And then, surprise, third sibling.
You can never, that's another thing. You can never, ever tell someone they can't have a baby because there's so much we don't know.
Yeah. And I really do believe in the mental side of it. I've had a friend of mine who like tried so hard, couldn't have kids, and then, you know, starts looking for adoption and then conceives 2 beautiful boys
you hear
in
that
her late
all
30s.
the time. Well, what advice would you give a mom or young girls who are starting out in, you know, and have that feeling, you know, I don't know, should I be an athlete? How do you think that they should combat that with body images and body, you know, like what could you?
I mean, you look amazing. You look beautiful. It's hard to, you know, comprehend everything that you went through.
Right. It's hard, I think, too, for everyone. Like, I think I could tell both of you guys are stunning, and you're probably thinking, well, but there's this thing I don't love.
No, I don't. I think I'm stunning.
Okay, well, that's good.
I do.
That's good.
Me too. But I think we both have that problem.
We have body dysmorphia, the opposite.
Forgive me for assuming, and slay queens. I want that for everybody. I would say that if you love sports, please play sports. I don't think a reason to quit is because you think you should be skinny. I will go on. That's my hot take. Play sports. It's so transformative. You learn so much. There's so many skills and takeaways for the rest of your life if you're an athlete. I just can't even imagine my life without sports. And then I think something I'd add about just like a close mother-daughter relationship is I think it's really important to be friends with your mom and friends with your kid. And
I think that if you don't have that close relationship, and of course, you know, our goal in life as parents is to have you fly, to set you up in a way that you spread your wings and go, but find someone that you can confide in, and whether it's a coach or a mom or a friend, you know, but I think, you know, this struggle is real. And I think that, you know, any girls listening to this or moms or dads or friends listening to this, you know, it is hard being an athlete and this juxtaposition. Yeah. So don't feel bad about it. Just know that is something that you might have to go through, and that there are people like you. And it's also the women's sports is changing, and these women that are, you know, these basketball players and these volleyball players that are becoming celebrities, they're big. And I think that that's helpful too, to see, you know,
they're so beautiful.
And to have those people that you can look up to.
But yeah, especially when it comes to your mental health, like anyone you feel that you can trust, when you open up to someone, the weight, like it just lifts off your shoulder. Even just the second you talk it out loud or you write it into a journal.
Yeah. And so we can just tell everybody how to find you.
Well, you can find my podcast. It's called Real Pod, and I talk a lot about mental health and body image, and I invite people on to get vulnerable with their own stories. And my Instagram is Victoria Garrick Browne. The 3 words. You won't miss it.
Love it. Power of 3.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks. Thank you both for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us today on SheMD.
If you want to own your own health, a good place to start is by following us on social media at SheMD Podcast and by subscribing to our show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
For takeaways from today's episode, visit our website, shemdpodcast.com. We'll see you next time on SheMD. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for a physician's medical advice. You should regularly consult your medical provider in matters relating to your own health. Even though we share our honest beliefs on SheMD, some of the products and services we discuss may involve sponsorships or paid advertising.